rise and shine everybody, and welcome back to episode 49 of Europe in Detail. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm going to really start to bring Moustiers together in this episode. There is a number of things that I really do need to address, and one of the cool things we're going to do in this episode is we're going to build like a vineyard and a winery with funicular access up and down. I'm really excited about that, and that's going to be a little bit later on. First, I really want to start finishing the edge of the town, and where we left off in the last episode, I kind of left a lot unanswered, especially in regards to the water we introduced to make that area that looked like Colmar. So first things first, I want to make it look like there's a more natural flow that introduces that water source. There's some really big hills that surround Moustiers, and the water runoff from these would be pretty significant. So I'm trying to make it look like there's a little bit of a river or a stream here that's coming out of a spring, and that's what's coming through town. So in order for me to really make this look realistic, which I would like to achieve, I've got to make it exit the town as well, and it goes underneath this really awkward intersection. I wasn't willing to change any of this. I think that would be a big no-no. I don't know, I just get the feeling that would force things in a particular direction, so I'm going to work with it as painful as that may be. So the idea here is to make it look like there's a small culvert or tunnel underneath this road that allows the water source to move from one side to the other and then sort of cascades naturally down the hillside in the shape of a waterfall. Now that sounded really easy, and when we break it all down it is really intricate, and this was quite difficult to pull off. One of the main issues was the road that I'm using doesn't have a elevated mode, which means that when I use a clipping network or a tear network, to remove the terrain underneath it, there's lots of clipping and the game mechanics don't really like it too much. I've experienced this a lot with the way that I play the game, and it's not really a problem as long as you're prepared to use props to cover all of the clipping, which can be quite the job. At this point here, I've got all of those necessary props in to cover any clipping, and I want to start integrating this into what we built in the last episode. So first things first, all the pedestrian paths get hooked up so that it's functional within game. Then I want to start extending things like handrails and gardens all the way over what we've just added. I'm having so much fun building this little area, it's really coming out quite beautiful. So when I feel inspired like this, I really smash the props down, which is what I'm going to do here. What I would like to see here is like really old stone arches, old timber fences half fallen apart. With the water source running through at such an awkward angle here, I would really like to try and make this look like some form of controlled chaos. This part of town is obviously ancient, like most of the town. I guess the original builders would be thinking more about just getting it done rather than what would make it easier. And that chaotic nature of building, I would love to have on show here. So I'm going to finish off the area here with a really nice waterfall on the outside edge of the road. I use grey flames, rock props matched to my terrain colour to extend that terrain to a sharper point to allow the waterfall to look more natural. Use some prop water surfaces to make it look like the water's flowing level right up to the edge of the waterfall, and of course also Kaminogi's waterfall prop. I make sure the rocks are nice and snug up to that waterfall prop, and then bring the foliage in a little bit closer. I continue making the edge of the stream from this point down with those grey flame rocks, and it extends down the hillside about another 100 metres under a small stone bridge and then out into some swampland. The asset creator Sven Berlin has made these really cool little these animated buskers, and I want to put them in here. I've got a really nice fountain that I've put in this area here because there's room for it. I've also got a couple of entertainment cubes hidden away in here that are going to draw people to the area, so I reckon having these buskers here while we have people hanging around will be really nice. I'm also going to show some age with the decal here. There's an exposed cobblestone on the ground, there's a bit of grass growing up through the cracks and stuff, and there's a couple of really nice painted wooden planters here with foliage growing in and around them. This Colmar inspired part of our town is very bright and colourful, and those flowers are going to extend right through this area here too. It's really hard to be inspired about building a car park, but I know that I have to come back here and finish this off. It's at a very awkward angle compared to the road, it's quite a bit lower, which means I need some stone retaining walls and some surfaces to get rid of the clipping. It may also get very hot here in the summertime, so I'd like to add in some planters with some nice big bushy trees to give some shade. You'll notice here too that I've got a pretty random stone archway in here. This is actually a little bit of a mistake. I had this in here just randomly when I was building something else in the town, and as I built out, I've just decided to leave it here. Maybe it was one of the really ancient parts of the town to begin with, and it's just been left here as an ode. Next, I'm going to spend a small amount of time detailing one of the only intersections in the entire town. And it's very simple, it's just one give way. The car park coming off this area does complicate it a little bit, but there isn't a huge amount of traffic volume here. The last thing I'd like to do with this is make it look really old, so I'm putting a few decals on the road that show that age. There's also some overgrown bushes and grass around the edge, and I also remove a few props so that citizens can walk up and down the verge of the road freely. So now I'm going to move to the other side of our town and start preparing the area to put in this funicular down to our winery. I'm going to put some more French buildings snaking their way around the road here. This is quite tricky because the incline is much steeper than it looks here. All these buildings are carefully placed by hand. Some of them are procedural objects in order to keep that terrain in check, and there's also a second row of buildings behind these just in a couple of places. They're also all of that French style obviously, but I've tried to include a couple of really old stone buildings here on the outskirts. Once those buildings are down, I can detail it all up, and it's very simple. There's just a small pedestrian pathway out the front of the buildings, some bollards, and the opposite side of the road is a simple walkway with some nice bush around it. Now, I can move on to tackling the ugliest part of the town so far, and I've been wanting to do this for a while, but I'm a bit of a sucker for making the game run correctly, so I want it to make money, I want citizens to be happy, and in order to do that, I have to have a small pocket of industrial. I've had this hidden nice and strategically away on the edge of the map for a long time, but now I'm going to bunch it all together and try and build something that covers all of this. So for now, I'm going to leave all that industrial bunched up, and we're going to start putting in the funicular. It's going to run down this nice gentle slope that I've got on the other side of the road, all the way down to the edge of the river. Then I'm going to clear away a lot of the foliage and just smooth out the area and get it ready to build on. The reason I needed to get that funicular in first is because I needed to get it pointing in the right direction before I finished building up here. There's going to be a fair amount of detail applied around it, and we're going to start by putting in these old castle walls. What I want to try and do here is make it look like there's a second level that gives access to the funicular, but also doubles as a car park that's going to go on top of these walls. I'd like the car park to be multi-storied. I don't know exactly how I'm going to pull that off at this stage, but that's what I'd like to achieve. I thought it would be pretty cool if the vehicles coming into town came through these archways and underneath the car park. I have to fiddle with the road a little wee bit to get it to fit. I also run a pedestrian path up from the bottom roadway to give access to pedestrians to the funicular. Then I really just want to use those brick or stone walls to frame in and around the industrial buildings. Once I've managed to do that, I'm going to build the lower car park with exactly the same method. Then I'm going to run a real functional road to give access to both of those car parks. So now I'll spend some time making it look a little bit prettier out the front of the funicular, and by the time that's done, this is easily the most time I've ever spent making a car park. But considering that it's doing three things, it's offering the parking, it's allowing access to the funicular, and it's covering the industrial, I'm pretty happy. The two more notable things that I do up at that entry to the funicular is a nice decal on the ground and a really nice looking iron fence. I'll finish it off by using some glass to darken the tunnel. I'd like to take some time now to put the vineyard in. So let's work our way down the hill and put it together as we move. In order to make it sit and look a little bit more natural, I'm going to frame it with some nice trees and a bit of rugged bush. This will hopefully make it look like the vineyard has been cleared and is clearly man-made. I downloaded this really cool looking grapevine that's easy to use from the workshop, and I'm going to plop these down the hillside, leaving enough room between them to put some pathways in. I also use a decal to make it look like some of the fields have been harvested, and then use the in-game gravel path with a node controller to put some bespoke looking pathways around the place. These paths are going to be fully functional when I'm finished, and there's even going to be a walking tour around the vineyard. So now I'm going to detail up the very bottom of the funicular, and this is where our restaurant and the main winery is going to sit. I had a picture in my head of it sitting right on the edge of the river. Maybe there's a nice big well kept grass patch where you can picnic or just sit out on a restaurant table and have something to eat. But I also want a little bit of a rawness to the area. There's big old barns that are still in use, there's tanks and vats around the place. We could pretend for a sec that this vineyard is completely in use still, and maybe they make some of the best wine in the country, and being able to come and get a table down here might be like a real challenge. So now you're going to see me just finish the rest of the pedestrian paths off. In order for me to have a walking tour that goes around the winery, the game needs me to create a loop with that pedestrian path. And that means it needs to cross over the funicular at least twice. So down the bottom here I've got some really nice stone stairs with some arches underneath that look pretty appropriate, and it was tempting to use these in the other spot as well. But in the end, I just decided to make a really rugged looking wooden set of stairs. Maybe these ones represent some original stairs, and the lower ones, the nice stone ones, represent upgraded ones. In any case, I need to get this loop done before I can get people using the funicular. At the moment, there's nothing down the bottom in the winery to draw anybody down there. But once I get that walking tour in, as well as a couple of entertainment blocks down there to double as restaurants, we should see lots of people starting to use it. So down here at the bottom of the funicular, this was really tricky. It was quite awkward how the building down here fit in. It was sort of underneath ground level a little bit, and I couldn't raise it without redoing pretty much the whole track. So I've got this awkward set of stairs that go in here, and you can also see that I'm using an old timber prop to make that water's edge. I'm hoping that that's just going to be another small touch that really shows how aged the area is. Guys, we are very rapidly approaching the end of our time in France. I normally chuck it out to you guys as to where you'd like me to go next, but I've already locked it in because I am going to build something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm very excited. I sincerely hope you guys have enjoyed the episode today. If you would like to help me beat the algorithm, you could give me a thumbs up or go one better and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, guys. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.